Hello, scholars. This is Response to Literature 3. Today we're talking about connections. And please make sure that you're prepared for today's lesson. You need a handout that looks like this. Everyone's using the same handout today. You'll need your Lupita Mañana book, and as always, you'll need something to write with. If you need to get a hard surface to write on as well, please make sure you have that before you start the lesson. Once you're ready to go, please keep in mind our champ's expectations for being at the computer station, and we'll get started. As usual, let's start off by making sure that our name is on our paper. If you are doing this assignment on the date that it is assigned, today is Pi Day, so it's the 14th. Pi. Put the period here. Let's take a look at our objective. Today's objective says, today I'm making text-to-text, text-to-self, and text-to-world connections so I can become a more proficient reader of literature. I know I will have met the objective when I can answer multiple choice questions on Chapter 3 with 80% accuracy or higher. If I circle our power verb today, it's making. The things that we are making are text-to-text, text-to-self, and text-to-world connections. When I move on to my objective, I definitely am not going to answer a 1 for myself because I know that we've already done a lesson about what text-to-text, text-to-self, and text-to-world connections are. However, I might be still at a 2 or a 3 because we haven't had that much reinforcement in it. I highly doubt that anyone is at a 4 already. Please make sure that you've rated your objective. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our sentence examples to revise. Our first sentence reads, it's easier to lift the smallest of the 2 stones. Please make your corrections to this sentence and then be ready to resume when you're done. Great work. We always start off with capitalizing the first letter of the sentence. We need to add the apostrophe in its because it is the word it is as a contraction. It is easier to lift the smallest of the 2 stones. In this case, we're talking about only 2. We've talked about this before. This word becomes smaller when we're only talking about 2 items. To lift the smaller of the 2 stones. Since we're talking about the number, we need to change this to the word 2. That means the letters. And we'll end with a period. Please make sure that you have done those corrections and then written the corrected sentence on the lines below. Once you're ready, let's take a look at the next sentence. Here it reads, after us have left, there will do the following. Find a cabin, eat our supper, and go fishing. Please make your corrections to this sentence, and when you're ready to resume, go ahead. Okay, we start off, capital. After us have left. Well, after we have left would be how to say this. After we have left there, okay, this is going to be a location, so it's T-H-E-R-E. After we have left there, we will do the following. Ooh, I noticed that when I read this, I read it with a pause here. That probably means I need a comma. And that's actually true. After we have left there, we will do the following. This sounds like a list is getting set up. So I'm going to put a colon right here to signify that a list is beginning. Find a cabin, there's our first item, so comma, eat our supper, comma, and go fishing. Stick a period at the end. Make sure that you have all these corrections, and then write the corrected sentence on the line that follows. Now let's take a look at our passage for main idea. Read the passage along with me as I read it out loud. October 4th, 1957 was a big day for scientists. It was the day the Russians launched Sputnik 1 into space. Sputnik 1 went into orbit and circled the Earth. It was the first time that a man-made object had ever orbited the Earth. It was a day for Russian scientists to celebrate. It challenged American astronauts to come up with the next big event. Okay, I'm going to use the 2W's strategy to help me find the main idea. You can do the same. So my 2W's is starting with the who this is about. So I would say, well, or the what this is about. I'm going to say this is about Russians. Okay. And then I'm thinking about what's this about? What about the Russians? Well, I would say, okay, well, it has to do with like sending Sputnik 1 into space, but it's more specifically like about the spaceship being sent in. So I might actually change this from Russians to being October 4th, 1957, and then I would say the what's going on with that is that was important to the Russians because they sent, Sputnik 1 to space. I probably could have just left this as October 4th, 1957 was important to the Russians, and then used the supporting details to explain that Sputnik 1 was sent into space. The details that I would underline, why it's so important, is I would say that it was the first time a man-made object had ever orbited the Earth. And I would also say there's a detail that says like Sputnik. I mean, every detail is here pretty good. Sputnik went into orbit. It circled the Earth. A day for Russian celebrates to celebrate. Challenged American astronauts to come up with the next big event. All of these, I think, are supporting details. Please synthesize this information and write the main idea on these lines. When you're ready to resume, let's go to the next page. All right, let's take some quick close notes to make sure that we're ready to review our connections. When you're ready, let's keep going. All right, so here's our review. Connections are links that readers make between the text and their own personal experiences. There are 3 types of connections. First, there's text to self. And text-to-self connections are when I read something and I can connect it to something in my own life. I'm going to underline that part because that's important. Then we have text-to-text. And this is when we read something and it reminds me of something I've read from another book or saw in a movie. So I'll underline that part. Another book or a movie. And then we have text-to-world. In text-to-world connections, this is when something from the book reminds us of something from the real world, or something that, like, for example, watching on the news or on TV. A really great way to organize these 3 types of connections while reading is a tree map. Okay, let's go ahead to our guided practice. We're going to draw a tree map and put the 3 kinds of connections as branches. So let's start off. We'll say connections. And this is going to be specifically about chapter 3, so I'll put chapter 3. And then I link out my trunk to my branches, and I'm looking to link 3 branches. And I'll label these text to text, text to self, and text to world. So text to self, text to text, and text to world. Now this next step is going to require you to do a little bit of multitasking. What you're going to do is read chapter 3. You'll find the link to the chapter 3 video in the links section for the chapters on our homepage. As you're reading chapter 3, you'll be thinking of the different types of connections that you can make. When you find a connection, you can pause so you're not missing any of the story, and then write the connection down below. I'll give you some examples. All right, let's start with the text-to-self connection. One of the passages that you'll read in just a moment on page 37 is about how Lupita is expected to look up to Salvador, her older sibling. I can make a text-to-self connection about that because as the older sibling, I made my little brothers look up to me. So as a text-to-self connection, I would say, as older sibling, I had my brothers look up to me. And I'm linking that with something on page 37, so I cite my page reference. You are welcome to include this on your tree map. However, it's going to be stronger if you have your own text-to-self connections. I'm looking for you to make at least 3 text-to-self connections. In terms of thinking about a text-to-text connection, I might think of, well, okay, in the text, I see, just in the first page, I can connect this to another movie that I've seen, which is something that exists. And in the movie that I saw, there was also a really evil moneylender with a big nose. So I reference back, this is on page 36, where they're talking about the description of the moneylender. And he says that they would know him by sight. He's a sharp-nosed man with cold, small eyes. So I would add that as a text-to-text connection, because the moneylender, and I'll say, is like the character in Merchant of Venice. And I'm connecting this to something on page 36. I'd like you to make at least 2 connections that are text-to-text connections. Once again, you don't have to copy mine. This is more of an example for you to follow. The last thing is our text-to-world connections. And this is when we are reminded of something from the real world, like something that you watched on the news or that you saw on TV. So one of the things that I think about just in the very beginning is I see in the book on this very next page that they talk about how the children have to take care of each other and that they have to be pulled out of school. So this reminds me of a news article that I listened to where kids, I'll just say kids, leave school to provide money for families. And this was an article I heard on the radio when they were talking about this. And I'm connecting this to something on page 38. In this one, I'd like you to make 2 additional text-to-world connections. Once again, you can write down what I wrote or just write your own. At this point, you're going to read chapter 3, and as you are reading, you'll be making text-to-self, text-to-text, and text-to-world connections. Good luck!